Hello everyone and welcome to week 4. You've made it to the final week in this course, and what we'll be doing this week is adding the final touches to our Pals for Life website. Important things to make note of. Erin is available during the standard hours this week, which is Monday through Thursday, 2 to 5 o'clock. And of course, you can always reach out to me. You can also go into the students' tutoring and say, hey, this is what I need help with, and they can look on their schedule and see who else, because there are usually other tutors who can help with this subject as well. It just varies, and they can let you kind of know. Obviously, since it's week 4, the tutoring center is going to be a little bit more crowded this week, so do keep that in mind. That also means that if you have any work you haven't submitted, now is the time to do it, because after this coming Saturday, I can't accept any of your work late. So make sure that you allocate enough time to get everything done. Let's see. Everyone's doing a really great job. We'll look at a couple of things briefly after we kind of talk through the overview and the career integration quiz related to the website, because I know people were struggling with a couple of things, so I just want to touch base on some of those. So the overview this week is we're just going to add the finishing touches to our website. We're going to, any stylization, any issues, any float issues that we happen to have, we will take care of all that. So the course media, or sorry, the career integration quiz, I always go over because there's always a couple of students that don't get full points, and it could have easily been avoided. So the first one is, what did you find the most value from the readings? You can include videos. Obviously in this class it's going to be video heavy in this course, and why. Sometimes it can help to have the course media page open, so that way you can kind of go back and reference certain readings that you found really helpful. You know, you talk about W3 schools, that's perfectly fine. What's important here is that it's at least 50 words, and it's more than it sucked or I agree, it was good. You have to go into details, and also has to be about this class. I'm glad you enjoyed your Photoshop course, but we didn't touch Photoshop in this course, so don't bring that up. And obviously, you know, don't copy word for word what I write either. That's been a problem in the past, so don't do that. So unfortunately, I'm only 44 words, and I find it usually takes close to about 4 lines. So I've got to figure out just a few more words. You know, I know some of the discussions had videos as well. You could bring that up. Okay, that'll do. I always like to click the left-hand side. I think it saves it, but I can't be 100% sure under the role I'm currently in. what did you find the most value from the instructor's lectures and this course, and why? It can be positive and or negative, that's fine. What worked for you, what didn't, what would you have liked to have seen more of? Feel free to, write that down here. We're almost there. Let's see. Okay. And when you do submit this, make sure that you might want to copy and paste all of your answers into a Word document, because I have seen situations arise where students hit the submit button and maybe they were logged, they were AFK for a certain period of time, and then they came back and finished it and hit submit. And what ends up happening is that your session expired and you think you're submitting something, but it shows a blank on my end. It's very rare, but it does happen. So, just be careful. It's 15 points. I want to make sure you're able to get all those. Perfect. I just hit 51. I will take it. So once I'm done, obviously make sure you review it, check for spelling, grammar, all that good stuff. And then you can hit submit quiz. Looking at the course media for this week, you'll see that it's really focusing on different form techniques for stylization. We will go ahead and touch upon that. I'll show you some of the work I've done in the past with the forms. I'll show you different examples within W3 schools as well. So the final layout. You open up the instructions. So for the most part, this is going to be a very short week. So we're going to spend like the second half of the lecture just showing you a couple of cool things that you might want to keep in mind as you progress and get to select electives down the road. We'll talk about WordPress and a couple other fun things. So let me open Dreamweaver. And we can play with the menu too, because I haven't done that. So what I think I will do first, and a lot of this is optional, you're not required to do it, but if you want to keep, playing around with different settings and features, you'll definitely want to, play around with that in your website. You can't break it, and you can always save like a backup copy just in case you get a little too wild and want to be able to revert back. So I think I'll do the menu first. Let me go ahead and just open this up in the preview. Oops, I apparently opened it up 3 times. So this is what it currently looks like. Nothing really happens other than the fact that when I move on over, it goes from the arrow to a pointer, letting me know that it's a link. You'll see that all the links are currently purple. That's by default because I've already visited those links. Yours, when you haven't clicked on them before, will be that dark blue, which is a default color for a link that hasn't been visited. So let's go ahead and go to links. So what this is going to do, by just putting A and in the brackets, color hot pink. What this will do, because we're saying A, is it's going to make all the links hot pink. That's all they're going to be. They're just going to be hot pink. You see that there's no hover effect. Everything is just straight out hot pink. Obviously, that's probably not the best. These are the 4 link states. So a link is a normal unvisited link. Then there's a visited, which is a link that's been visited. Hover is going to, of course, be when you hover the mouse over it. And active is going to be the link that is currently clicked or the user is currently on that page. An example can be seen right up here. So right now we're on CSS, so you can see how it's that green color. Everything else is just sort of like this gray color right now because we're not on it. It's not active. We haven't gone to it. But once I start hovering, you can see that it starts to turn black when I hover on these items. And if I click on it, then it'll become this active green color. So a brief little quiz or check-in is, what color are these going to be? And the good news is CSS has definitely been formatted in a way that makes it easy for people to quickly identify what that's going to be. So an unvisited link, the color is going to be red. The visited link is going to be green. When you hover over, it's going to turn hot pink. And then the active color is going to be blue. So we can see that by going to, check yourself. So you can see how when I hover, it turns hot pink. We can also add additional effects to change the cursor to something different. And of course, that would just go right underneath the color hot pink. At the end of the semicolon here, we could go ahead and put cursor. It's not going to give us, the fill-ins to kind of hint us to help us, but that's where we would do that. And then, of course, you can see if I left-click just to try to click on it, but I don't fully release, it turns that blue color. And this is how you can add decoration. So right now, I have an underline. And I can decide whether or not I want there to be an underline and when there's an underline. So I can have it where it's a link, but there's no underline. You can see that, a link. So it's just saying when the link is just a standalone link, no one's done anything to it yet. There's not going to be an underline. And after I visit it, it's not going to have an underline. But if I hover over it, or it's currently active, it's going to have that underline. And it really kind of comes down to best practices and what works for the design that you're coming up with. for particular clients. And here's background color. It's not really a thing that's done very often. I think it was more of a thing in like the 90s when people were just, you know, trying to figure out the Wild West. Because this just, you know, it's just not ideal. It's hard to see, it's confusing. It would not look good on a website. And then here are all a bunch of advanced features. Of course, there's more than just this, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what's here. So this is how you can create a full button, just in case you were interested in that. And I might do that for this class, just so you can see that. I'll do it both ways. And you can see how the red changes color a little as you hover over it. You'll see that there's nothing here for selected. It's just active. And you can always put them in the same location here. Hover and active. Actually, yeah, there is. It's right there. And then they had link and then visited here. Change the cursor. And let me share this resource with you. So here are all the different types of cursors. And you can hover over them and you can see what they all look like. Obviously, for the most part, the icon you're going to just use is the default one, which is the pointer. You know, move, help. Those aren't ones that you would use because they don't represent the proper action for that item. So for this one, it's going to be pretty similar, where it's going to have a border. It's got background color, so it's going to have a hover effect like this. And you can see that normally, you know, it's got black text with a green border, and then when you hover over it, you can see that it's going to change the background to green and the color is going to be white, so that changes the text to white. So you can see that effect right there. And then all these links do something a little different. This link changes color. This link changes font size, so it can get larger. The changing the font size in a link is also a very dated trend from the early O's that you really don't see very often on websites nowadays. So I'd say about 90% of these you wouldn't use, like the font family change and the background color and the font size. You don't use those anymore. The underlining is sometimes still used, and obviously the link changing color is very commonly used. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this, and then I'm going to build it up how I want it to look. And I'll just do it down here. I'm just going to add a comment to keep me honest. And you can kind of see how my menu has changed. Now, Some drawbacks to doing the whole square boxy thing is depending on how long your words are is going to impact how much width is being used for each box. So it can look a little awkward. And the whole boxy feel is also pretty dated. Like if I were to go to, let me just pick out, I'll just go to like 5 or 6 of the big sites. Very subtle change. Let's see. This one uses underlines, but again, very, very subtle, nothing really too dramatic. It doesn't even tell you which one's active. Amazon's a little tricky because it is like a huge warehouse of items, so it's not going to be as obnoxious. Well, here you can kind of see it does have the boxes here, but I guarantee you if you go on your mobile, it's not going to be here. And this kind of bothers me, like how it cuts into its own little line. I think regardless it had to, just due to the amount of width that was available. But it does make it look a little weird. But otherwise, everything else is just right down here. So if I were to click video, it becomes more of a grid layout with images for each of the movies. I think there's a menu up there that was a little different. Nope, that's weird. Yeah, so right here they have somewhat of a menu. And it's very similar to Microsoft's where it just creates an underline. And obviously New York Times is a newspaper, and they kind of do use the underline, which is interesting, but I guess you can also consider the age of the reader. And in this case, it just changes to like their different colors, I think. And whatever page I'm currently on is apparently active. And this red color. And we'll look at like one more site. And again, it's a simple hover over effect. Very, very light in terms of what it's showing. But it does highlight it. It creates a little glow effect when you are active on a page, which given what this website's about, you know, it's a game, multiple games, that kind of fits. And it has a dark blue background, so it does stand out. And I'm sure that they did their work to realize, okay, every site's probably going to have a darker background, so that way the menu stands out really well. But then here in the sub-menu, it looks like whatever you're on, it does have that underlined blue, which, you know, again, matches their logo color, so it works out well. And it kind of helps and it is a little bit whiter. So those are other ideas. So first things first, I'm going to use the same colors I used up here. So I just got to go find it. It's going to be in the, I want to say the container area. There it is. Or maybe I do the bottom border color, but I think the white will contrast better there. Oh, I know, I can do the hover effect like that color. And I can always play with the padding. You know, I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller. Obviously, that would not be a good step in the proper direction, but you know, just want you to be able to see the differences. So that helps get it a little bit smaller, but I don't really like that. I like giving it a little bit of breathing room. The text is going to be center aligned. There's no, you know, decoration, so there's no underline. There's nothing to worry about in terms of bullets, anything else about that. And it's going to be inline block, so it's just solid right across. I delete that. You can see that it kind of reduces some of the padding, which is definitely something I don't want to do. And let me go ahead and grab the other color, and then I'll pause my screen for a minute or two so that you can gather that code if you like. Again, we're going to go through a couple different options, so don't worry about that. You can see the hover effect happen right here. So here is all the code if you want to go that approach. If not, you know, just fast forward like a minute and then we can go over another couple of ideas. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this and just put it in a Word document. So let me see what I want to do now. Let's make the color black. Oops. Obviously that's not what I want, but you know, hover, then I could change that to like the darker blue color. So let me grab that color again. And I don't want to make it background color because background color will make the background. Instead, it will just be color. And I could always split it up to where link and visited are different colors on their own line. So I can show that next. It's just one of those things where I don't want too many colors where it kind of becomes a little ridiculous. But that's a much mild way to create a menu and add just a little bit of colors from the color palette that's being used, which is typically what's done for a menu. I can get rid of the padding. Unless, of course, you want a little padding, then you can add that back and we can play with that. So I could always have the link be these colors. And it's going to automatically create the closing one. So let me fix that. And you can see how because I haven't identified the visited, it automatically went back to purple, which is obviously not what we want. But this is where we can go ahead and do that. And of course, I can copy and paste a lot of this and kind of change it. So not that I want to make it hot pink, but just because that's apparently in my mind, because I've already visited all these sites, it became hot pink. Obviously, that doesn't match my theme, but it's there. Obviously, I have an issue here where it hovers over, and that's where I'd have to add a unique class to make that link different than all the other ones. And then active. Again, not colors that complement my design, but I just want you to be able to see the differences between them. And of course, it always helps if I can preview it. I might need to save it. That's my problem. So everything by default right now is going to be hot pink because I've already visited all these pages. So if I click on this one, you can see it hover over, it's that dark blue, which matches here. If I click on here, this is now, you can see how the coral color is being shown versus the hot pink. You can tell there's a difference. And I'm currently on the home page. And nothing's black text-wise because I've already clicked on all the links. So unfortunately, I don't see that effect again until I do it on another computer or I clear out my cookies. So I'm always going to see right now the hot pink. And those are definitely things you want to keep in mind, especially if it's going to be a website that people are always going to return to, click on the same links, if you want them to look different based off if you visit them or not. That's also sort of a dying trend. So I probably won't have a visited one. I'll have the visited be the same as the active one. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete these, but again, it's another way. Lots of ways to create a menu, which is a good thing. Get rid of background color. I'll make the text black. And we could have always extended out this container right here and put it into the menu as well, so it would have been one big square. That's another option. Let's see, if it's hovered or active. And I could make it where the active is also part of this color right here. That's a possibility. And then let me kill off that one. And just do color. And then I could do underline. And you can see the underline. So I've kind of created like that blizzard effect that only appears when they hover over it. And then when I'm on home, it simply is just the black text again. That's your call. Some people really do like seeing, what page they're on. It helps them distinguish that. So if I did want to do something special, I can go ahead and take the active right here. And maybe use the darker color. So it's really hard to see the difference. So that's where probably having something that's a bit more aggressive, different color would oh, well, here's why. Because I still had this up here, and then it's going to always override the first one. So that was part of my problem. So I'm like, I don't see a difference. It's still going to be a subtle difference, but we should be able to see it a little bit better now. I'm still not seeing it. And so I see it right there. I see that color, but then when I release, it kind of goes back to black. So and I think the reason why, I know why, because I've already visited it, so it's going to automatically go back to black. That's part of my problem. But I think I'll leave it like that. It's very subtle, which is what you mainly see on websites nowadays. But, definitely have fun playing with it. And, it kind of helps because I kind of am using these same colors so that can confuse someone to think these are links. I think on a normal, fully, built website, they would be. But obviously in this course, we weren't building a database or anything like that to connect all this. But because I have the underline, it kind of also helps reaffirm with people that, hey, this is a link, go to it. So I've got an issue here, and it's mainly the hover effect. So I can either try to fix that, which would be kind of hard because it'd have to be a light color here, or I can play around with the HTML and CSS. Let's see where that is. It's right here. And what I can do is I can actually add a class to this link right here. There we go. So what I can then do, and once I have it working properly, I'll show it to you. Email. Hey, and let's do, it's going to be the hover is the problem. And again, this is why it's really important to have like a strong color palette from the get-go, so that way toward the end you're not trying to figure out, okay, what can work, how can this work? You've got all that figured out. I might just turn it white. Now I've only set that up on the adopt page, so that's going to be super duper important to make sure I only test this out on the adopt page because it's not going to work anywhere else. And I don't see it working just yet. So let's see what the problem is. It should just be the hover effect. Could be, oh, it looks like adopt, the website for the adopt hasn't been saved because I have the asterisk right there on the right hand side. So let's try that. Nope. So let me see what else could be causing a problem here. Let's try it this way. I think that's fine. There we go. And I think what got me was I didn't have the A out first, and as a result, it wasn't even reading it. Didn't know what to do with that. So, and hover. Okay, let's try that now. And sometimes hitting enter up here. Nope. Huh. I should have done it. So, and let me see. I'll try one more thing, and then I won't eat too much of your time on this, because I'm pretty sure I should be able to do email, and then I can do A, and let's just go ahead and do link in general. Let's just start it this way. And I'm just going to do an obnoxious color, because I'm just trying to see if I can get any like effect to happen. Okay. And that should just make the link in general a particular color. And let's hit save. Oh, it's the adopt page. Oh, good Lord. So that was my error. I thought it was on the donate page and it was the adopt page. So I probably had it right the whole damn time, but I was on the wrong page. So you know what? I say that and then I go to the adopt page. I'm on the adopt page. So let me see. I can't get that to flip, and it should. I mean, I could make it a div. I'd have to change a few things about that. So for example, I could do within the footer, let's see. I don't think it's dot, it's just straight out footer. Nope. It's something right in front of my face. I'm just missing it right now. But I can send you a link on how to change the standalone image, standalone links if you like. Let's see. This is quite the novel. But down here they have basic link styles. Hover, visited, active, different types of buttons. So this might be helpful depending on what you decide to do with your links and the menu. This one could help just walking through a bunch of basic CSS stuff. There are also all sorts of interesting, I don't want to say plug-in features, but somewhat that you could incorporate if you want to add any special effects or any stylizations as well to your site. So, like there's a button maker here, and there's all sorts of like, CSS tricks, all different sorts of effects that you can add here and play around with them. You can also view all the CSS. Obviously, it's a lot more code, but I'll share a couple of these with you just because it's cool to know and be aware of all the different resources that are out there. Here are additional type of buttons, with the glossiness, the drop shadow. Here's how you can change all the effects. Obviously, a lot of this is really, really dated. Like, we really don't do drop shadows. We don't do a beveled look. We don't do any sort of glow. Apple did all that like in the late, 2008s, 9, 10s. And nowadays, websites are very clean, modern. Mostly because, in order to be responsive, it's just easier to keep things simple. So, transition generator. I'm going to do generator and see what I get. CSS tools and snippets, the ultimate generator. And you definitely can get lost on here. So we've got all these different sorts of things that we can do: gradients, flexbox, outline, multiple columns, text shadow. Ease in, ease out. Sometimes they'll actually give you examples to look at before you do it. So this one, unfortunately, isn't as much fun because they're leaving it more up to you to kind of know what you need to be doing. Border radius, so that makes it to where your website has more of a rounded feel versus the standard, square, sharp edges. I don't use any of these because I know how to create the effects if I want to, but it is good for people who don't. But again, you're going to want to be very, very careful if you use any effects. It's just not a good time. Background generator, again, we really don't put backgrounds. It's usually just a neutral color. Back in the late 90s, it was these crazy wallpapers, MySpace stuff that, again, we just don't use nowadays. Animation ones are kind of fun, but again, you have to, it's going to be made with JavaScript or Java and CSS, so it should be responsive, but you can't really tell until you actually test it in different devices. Let's see if I can move forward a page. I don't think it's letting me actually move forward a page, which isn't a good thing. Here, at least, they kind of let you see what the animation is. This is going to ease, can ease out, rotate. So you can kind of see how it's going to move around, what it's going to do. Ooh, skews weird. Then I can run the animation. So that's what it's going to look like. And of course, here's all the code. So definitely a lot of code. And it's going to tell you what browsers and editions that it supports and what it doesn't. So if your user is, let's say, using Dolphin or the default Android or another browser that you can download, they probably won't see this animation. There's no guarantee, unless, of course, again, we test it ourselves. Some more options. Saturate, you can do filter effects. Here's a preview way over here. Again, you're not required to use any of these, but I just wanted to show you some of the things that are actually out there. And I'm just going to grab a couple of these. Because what we can also do is go to my form, which is going to be my donate page. And I'm going to close up everything else. So a couple of things is you're going to want to figure out how you want your form to look. And certain things I've kind of commented on a couple of students was make sure that the proper line breaks are established, so that way, you know, the email is on top of the box, you know, unless you're having the box right on this side, that's fine to the right. But I know sometimes like the names were in the label for the name was in a really awkward place, so things weren't lining up properly. We're definitely going to want to make sure we do that. And let me see. A couple things I can work on right now. And it's pretty easy within the HTML side. So let me make this a little bit larger. And I know it makes it hard because you can't see it happening in real time. We'll just have to jump around. I need to go to Window and Properties. And then here is where I can start to make some of my fields required, put in restrictions, all super duper important. And what I can do is I could have one of the donations be fixated. So that way when the user goes to the page, they automatically see that a certain amount is already selected. For example, if I go to you'll see by default, the 50 is selected. I know that because if I hover over any of the other ones, it'll turn that gray instead. So they're trying to force you to highly encourage you to donate at least $50. But then you'll see that they've got this sign that's pointing saying, hey, people usually give $100. So, you know, you should be like all the other people and give 100. And they definitely jump up pretty dramatically in price. And then, of course, they've got another field. And they have it set to where you can do monthly donations. You'll see that this doesn't work out properly because they're saying $100. Obviously, that's going to be more than $100 when you factor in there are 12 months times 13, that's over $100. So let me go ahead and autofocus that one. And let me hit save. Again, you're not required to do these. It's just highly recommended that you consider these and play with it. Oops. What? Oh, did I hit enter, like to donate? Let's see. Okay, so that didn't stick. So let me go ahead and put checked. So it's focused and it is checked. Now it should work. And there it is. So when I first go to my site, it's going to have 50 as the auto selected default amount to donate. You know, I could put monthly donation. I could check that one too if I want, but you know, it's up to you. And then first name, we'll find where the input type is. And this is where I can determine how big my field is going to be. This is also where you can put placeholder text. So if you don't want the name information to be outside the field box, this is how you do it. Here's why I put required. You can set the option to autocomplete, like if someone has it saved on their computer, like their information, it'll give them the option. First name. Size, you know, this is where I can make the field a lot larger if I want to. So you'll see now it says first name right here. Let me hit save. And then of course I can type in whatever I want. So I could, you know, keep the text right here outside, or I could put it inside of the field box. I think I'll just leave it outside because I put in so much time to do it the other way that I'll just leave it like that. And of course, I also want to make last name required. And of course, what happens then is it'll turn red by default. We can change those colors if we really want, but for right now, we're not going to. And if I try to submit it without that field, you'll see that it says, please fill out this field. Using advanced CSS, we can also customize what the pop-up looks like, what sort of feedback it gives the users. We won't talk about that in this class, but that is an option available. So I'm going to go through and make everything required. You know, expiration date, I could put the size to 4. Now it's going to make this a lot smaller, which you can see right here it just did. I can also do that to the credit card input field. I can make it, I think it's 16. It's going to be the max length. And actually, let me go ahead and fix that and put that under size. Require that and put the size as 3. Now, I think for like the CVV number for discovery cards is actually 4. So I might switch that from 3 to 4. So those are just a few of the front end changes that we can make. There's obviously a lot more that we can do within the form. Let me now show you. Let's go through some of these. Here's where they're putting like different, you know, widths for the table. So obviously the first name can be this long, which we're not going to do. We can add padding to kind of create breathing room instead of using line breaks. Here is like the border radius and what color it is. You can also give your form fields like a rounded corner if you want. A lot of these techniques aren't really used though, but they are out there, and the whole point is just to expose you to different, possibilities. You can fill in the background color of particular forms. I would be very, very careful with it. Again, it's really not something that's commonly used. If you're ever in doubt, you can kind of look at other really big websites. Very, very basic, straight to the point. You can see, let's see how many numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. So they realized that Discovery has a total of 4 numbers, so they set that up. I think the space could have been a lot smaller, but okay. So they didn't set it up here, but that might also be because they might take international, which they do. So that would probably be a little different. And let's just go ahead and check out. Oh, I do have something in my bag. So very clean, good use of the grid layout. And I can go to checkout, continue as guest. I'd like it delivered. So, here's these little rounded corners. So that's exactly what was being talked about right up here with these guys. And it's got a hover over effect. So if you can wait one more day, you're going to get it for free versus paying $8. Continue to shipping address information. So again, very, very clean form. They have a little bit of a special effect here, which can be kind of irritating, is the name pops up. So that's through programming, and it turns red. You'll see that the field is blue, and there's an arrow that also pops up underneath it, letting you know that you need to enter your first name. Fine. And then it becomes neutral again. So they kind of punish you if you don't fill out everything. So they're going to force me to fill out something. Apologies to whoever's number that is. And it wants a last name. The good news is I'm not actually going to send it, but there's always the possibility that they might be recording what I did on the first page, because it's called like an abandoned shopping cart, and they might try to reach out. I've never seen it happen before, but be like, hey, why didn't you finish your order? So obviously credit card's going to be the way to go, but you can see that they've got all these other options, and it's again the same effect right here. And then they want your credit card number. They tell you, graphics of which ones they accept, and then the expiration, and then the CVV, where to find it. Apparently you can split it with another credit card, which is always sort of interesting, but okay. So very clean form overall. Not, too many crazy components. Amazon's the same way. Because again, you don't want to overwhelm people. This isn't the place to be artsy. It's the place to communicate information in a very clear, easy to follow way. So let me see. We can play with the submit button. The reset button is kind of silly because you can see that for the most part on all those other websites we were on, it really didn't exist. But how you input into the CSS side form information, it's going to be input, and then it's going to be type, and then it's going to be whatever it equals. So, you know, for example, text field, let me actually show it to you. You know, text field 6, text field 7, that's where, you know, having a more descriptive ID is really helpful, because when you come back to this project in a couple of months, years, whatever, you're not going to remember what the heck text field 6 was versus, you know, the ID of credit card field, you know, state field, CVV field. Very, you know, easier, more descriptive. So what I can go ahead and do is hit enter, and I could put form. Let me get rid of that properties window. So it did a lot of different things, just these default settings. We're of course going to play with that and fix that. And the background color is this green color. It looks like it's floating to the right, so let's drop that. And click once, and I can see it's right there now. Border radius is 4 pixels, so it's what's giving me that rounded effect. There's no border, so there's no outline. The color is white, and the background color is green. What I want to do is go ahead and I'm just going to delete the reset button. I see no need for that. And I will go ahead and I could add a line break here to kind of create a little bit more breathing room underneath. But I can also do that in the CSS. So I can go ahead, here's the padding that's been provided. The padding is going to be around this area though. And if you're ever not sure, you can always just add a little bit more and you can see what's happening. So let's do margin top, and let's do maybe 30 pixels. And you can see how it created a lot more room. So this is how I can create a much bigger button if I wanted, by just pushing out the padding a little bit more. Not sure what I feel about that yet, but it's there right now. And then what I can go ahead and do is, I like the whites. I can go ahead and grab the font family though, which is going to be right here. And that obviously align the font family with the fields up here. And let me go ahead and change this color to the darker color. This one. There we go. So now it matches my theme. Turns to a pointer. I'm fine with that. If I want more of a rounded edge, I could do that right here. And then I can hit save. Make sure I also save the donate form. Source code, save, there we go. And there's my button now. Now I don't have a hover effect, and you usually want to add a hover effect. So I can go ahead and do that. I'll probably just do the lighter color. And let me see, thinking. And let me see. Should be able to put it right here. There we go. And I shouldn't have to do that. I just want to change the background color. Unless I want to do it the same color because I won't be able to see the effect. The gray would not be the right color. It will not contrast high enough. This one. Again, this week's just a lot of adding the, finishing touches that you would like to see on your form, playing around with the CSS, and there you can see the hover effect. And maybe I even make this bold. Font style. Bold. Let's get in the CSS. There we go. So let me push this on up so that way you can look at this code. And if you want to mimic some of it, you can. Definitely play around with it. Make sure it fits your style and not my design. So now that we have that done, I do think that's about as much as I'm going to stylize my form. There are, of course, different additions as well. I'll show you a couple of them. Here are all sorts of different examples that go into rather detail. And this one has definitely, the pre-written out information right here, but then it also has it as a hint. The submit button is floating to the right-hand side, which is something you're going to want to be careful about because obviously for responsive devices, for mobile devices, it's going to be a little different. So you're going to have to change those fields. And here's actually the responsive layout that they've created. Make 2 columns stacked on top of each other instead of next to each other. So it's actually going to be the name followed by the field entry that people will then put in. So let me close out of this. Let me share these links with you just in case you're curious to play with them a little bit more. So here's like the default button, which is what I had before and what it was changed to. The different colors, of course, just based off what you make the background color. Button sizes. How much padding is between the text and the background color. Brown buttons and what they look like. This could be a handy resource to save, so that way you can kind of see what style, what amount of numbers to use for pixels, borders, hover buttons, and creating that effect. Again, it's a pretty dated trend. You'll see that none of the real popular websites are using it. Shadows, also something that's pretty dated. Disabled buttons, sort of weird and questionable for the user's experience. So I would advise using that. And of course, border width, 250 or 50%, 100%. Here's how you can create a button group. Again, something to keep in mind is if you have a button that has more than, 6 letters, it's going to be longer. This has a border. And of course, this is how you do vertical buttons. Again, it's not common to see vertical buttons, but every now and then you will, like especially like drop-down items. But again, this is sort of a dated trend. It's usually very clean, and the layout doesn't have such a boxy feel. So for example, like Apple, where it has more than one category. Let's see if I can find one. Instead of doing a drop down, they're just doing this where you can just select which one you're interested in. So here they got the arrow that points, and again, it's very graphic. Easy for the user to kind of click on where they want to go, what game they want to check out more about. And then of course here you'll actually see the drop down, but you'll see that it's not really boxy. It's just sort of one after another within this little display that they've created, and it's got this little hover effect. So it's really bright over here on the left-hand side, but then it fades away to the background color. So it's definitely an opacity that is set, and it's a gradient that as it moves farther to the right, it disappears. And of course, each game has their own little feel. So if I went to Overwatch, that's how theirs looks. So less artsy, I guess you could say. A little bit wider here. And this one, they're just using underline to help you out. And then I wonder if I click on here, it doesn't really tell me where I am, and that'd be kind of hard to. But you can definitely see it. This website gets deep really quickly. And let's go back to games, just because it's fun to see all the different designs. So similar. They definitely took the same style that they did for, what was it called? The Heart one. Hearthstone, I should have known that. Very similar again. Let's see if there's anything else I want to show you on these pages. It's the button ones. Let me go ahead and send that to you. Avoid the whole button on an image. It's a very, very dated trend, and it's just something we don't want to worry about or deal with. Again, when we deal with mobile devices, it's very much keep it simple. This is a hover over icon effect. You'll see that sometimes, but it's something you'll just want to be careful about, especially on mobile devices where it's not so much of a hover as just a tap. Fade in. So it's a weird ripple effect. One of the biggest things I always do if I'm considering, adding something like style-wise, animation, or transition-wise, is I always look at what the big companies are doing. What's Google doing? What's Apple doing? What's Microsoft doing? What's Amazon doing? Because if they're not doing it, most of the other big companies out there in the world aren't going to be doing it. Colored labels, how to add that. And of course, it'll be based off what the label class is called. And then here they've done W3/text/blue. Obviously, we'd be using CSS for that instead of inline styles to do this. So we could look at, like if maybe I didn't want this text to be the gray color, the standard text, I want it to be blue, I could go to state and you'll see that it is, I can make all these IDs the same if that's what I wanted to do in terms of changing the colors to all of them. I could change that ID to descriptive header or something like that, and then I could, not the ID, sorry, I'd have to do that to a class because these are all going to be unique. So I'd have to add a class right here, which I can do right there. And then I can specify that and I can change all those to blue if I really wanted to. This doesn't have the border, so it's right up against the edge. Mine has a little bit of space and it has a border. Again, most sites do have a little bit of a border to kind of contain that information and create separation. But if you happen to be someone who wants to be a little bit more modern, you can play around with that. Let's see. I see. I missed it. I've seen this on a few sites and I find it incredibly irritating where like if you click on it, the whole field stretches out to 100%. I don't see a need for that. They're just showing you that one of the options is disabled. There are other ways to do this, like especially if no more items are available and you would do that using PHP, so it's a little different. Adding icons, sometimes people will add icons to try to help you understand, what should be in each area. It's not accessible and it does become a bit of a pain in the butt when you have to design it for mobile devices. So that's why you usually don't see them. Again, it depends on how many people are coming to your website. Like if you're a big, e-commerce site like Apple or Google or Amazon, you don't really get too artsy. You get straight to business because you don't want anything impacting your user's experience to check out, to give you their money. Because if there's a problem there, the company obviously is going to lose, at the end of the day, thousands, if not millions. So they don't want that. For like something like a private portfolio page where you're not going to have an extensive amount of traffic unless you become popular and you're selling your work, etc., you can get away more with a stylized feel like this, but you have to be very, very careful with it, because again, this is going to take up some room on a mobile device. So, do you include that, or does that kind of go away when you go to the mobile display? Those are just things that you'll have to keep in mind and think about. These are alerts, not ideal, and you don't really see them very often. But sometimes with PHP, when you log on in to like your bank account or your school portal, you'll get told a variety of different things. Like, if it's green, it's positive. If it's red, you've got a problem. And of course, you can kind of see some of the alert colors right here. Green, success; red, danger; negative, situation; yellow means something might need your attention; blue is always information. These are some other colors. Sometimes a lighter pink is used, as well as like a lighter yellow and the green for success. So let's just say that I'm done. What I can then go ahead and do is upload everything to my site. And it's right here, I think. Nope. Right here. Ignore just the endless spam. And let me go to File Manager. And upload files now. And it's my hope by next semester that you're able to get your own account. I'll walk you through, with the time that we do have left, the web hosting for students, because it is a really awesome site. So I know I definitely need to delete my donate and I think my adopt page, because I need to update those two. So I'll go ahead and do that. And definitely, take your time with this. Don't cause errors. Make sure this is all saved. Sometimes closing out is also a good thing, because if it wasn't saved, it would have, said, hey, you need to save this. And then let me go to the CSS. And delete. And I'll upload that. And of course I can go back. And click on that link. And of course I can test everything out to make sure everything loads properly. And everything turned red, which is a good thing because I had everything pretty much be required. You'll see that the minimum donation that I'm trying to get people to do is $50, and that is selected, so that's really good. One thing we didn't do in this class was a thank you page, because what happens after we hit the submit button, if we actually had everything filled out, is it would go to a thank you page for donating. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff in the back end that hasn't been configured yet to actually make this form work. Like, we don't have a credit card processor in the background running this information, so right now it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't charge anyone anything because that code isn't set up. We would also have, this be a database to where all this information would then be put into a database that, management, designers, people on the back end could reference and then use in targeted email blasts to get people to donate during particular times, events, etc., etc. So once I'm happy with my site, I can go ahead and copy and paste that URL. I can zip my website folder up, and then I can submit it to week 4. Do make sure that you put like a backup copy of this website on Google Drive or a flash drive, or even email it to yourself if it's not too large of a file, because you're going to be referencing this file for the 3rd programming course that you'll take. Most people take it right after this one. If not, no worries. Just again, make sure that you have that file. If you don't, you'll get the generic file when you start, so it's not like end of the world stuff. It's just if you like how your site's looking and the styles that you've added, you'll want to make sure you keep a copy of that somewhere. So let me show you around a little bit with the time we have. When you do get your web host account and go to login, and you'll see that this is the home page that you kind of experience, and you won't need to worry about invoices. As long as you're an active student, you will have access. I believe you get access for up to a year after you graduate, which is a nice thing because it allows you to kind of use it while you're looking for jobs with your portfolio. There is a help desk, so if you run into issues, you can put up help desk. There's a knowledge database here. It's a fairly new site, so it's kind of sketchy in terms of not having a bunch of resources available yet. Obviously, you're not going to order new services or any of the add-ons. Domains, again, same thing. You're not going to worry about any of that. Billing, you're not going to worry about any of that. Affiliates, you're not going to worry about any of that. Where you're mainly just going to be going every time you log on in, you'll see the shortcuts, all these other stuff. You'll just go to the button, My Hosting. And then you'll see that I have the 48-month plan. And I can just click on the products and services right here. To view my actual website and know what my URL is, it's going to be over here in the left-hand side. This, of course, will show me how much disk usage I'm using, what my bandwidth is. So if I just click right here and go to open a new tab, it's just going to take me to a root directory because I don't have like an index file on my home page. I just have a bunch of different folders for every course. And then what you can do is you can kind of see the different work that we've done for all these different courses. These are quick links, quick way to create like an email account, log into webmail within this application. Things to note, administrators can read this email. So if you decide to use it, just know that going on in that someone higher up above can read it. Change password. Log into cPanel is where you're going to go to upload stuff. And one of the main spots you're going to kind of live in is going to be File Manager. And within File Manager, you're going to have all these different directories. You'll learn more about these in your various web courses that you take. And I'm going to go under Public HTML. And these are all the different files within Public that I have. And here they all are. So if I needed to, for example, upload my site here, how I would do that is I would click on the plus sign for folder here. And I'm just going to stop talking for a second, or I won't stop talking, but you'll see there's all these different settings, all these different tabs and options. Obviously, anything grayed out right now is grayed because I don't have anything active. Like for example, if I click on this one, you'll see that delete became active, rename became active, permissions, and compress. Obviously, certain other ones still aren't. So if I want to create a new folder for this course, I could just right click and I could go 209 and we'll just do July. I know I already have a July one. I'll just add another underscore. And I want to put it in my public folder. So now I've got this folder. On the right-hand side, we can see what the size is of the folder, when it was last modified, what type it is, the permissions that are set. So I can change it to where, people can't see the file. Granted, that kind of defeats the purpose, but it's there. And then I can click on here in it. The directory is empty. So what I can then go ahead and do is hit the plus sign on the folder, put images, and CSS. Then what I can go ahead and do is go to the upload button right here. And I can either drag files or I can upload them. So you can see it's a very similar process. And there's no final button. It literally just uploaded everything. If I want to override existing files, I would have made sure to have checkmarked this box. Otherwise, donate would have become donate 1, form mailer 1, and that's definitely not what we want. And let me go ahead and click on the CSS. And you can't just move the style here. It'll actually open the file. So that's one of the hardest things to kind of work through, and unfortunately it kicks you all the way back, so you kind of have to go back through it all. And then go to upload. Also, if you stay on this page for more than a couple of minutes and then try to upload something else, it won't let you. Like, it just will not accept it. It doesn't air out or anything. It just looks at you. So that's another one of the weird quirks that this application has. And of course, I can go up one level, then go to images, upload, and not select file. I want to drag the files. And everything is 100%. If anything errors out, it'll let you know. It's obviously going to turn like a red color. If anything is still processing, it's going to, show only 60, 70%. And then I can go back. And let me click on this URL and then go to 249 July, and I can see that my site's loaded. I can, of course, go ahead and check to make sure everything loads, all the images are there. Always super duper important to do. And yep, so that's on the main spots. We can also connect to Dreamweaver using FTP accounts. They're security and their firewalls are a little bit wonky, where a lot of students, including myself, struggle to properly set up an FTP account and link it to Dreamweaver. So I need to put in a help desk ticket regarding that, actually. You can, back up all your sites, things do happen, and there's a guide to do that. Then we have a PHP MyAdmin where we can create databases, as well as a MySQL database. Those are things you will be working with in future courses that you take. And it's just more of an FYI of all the different things that are going to be coming your way. Email, here's all the different things you can do with this email account. No one's really using it, but it's pretty standard within any web hosting that you purchase. So just, it's another one that's just FYI. Let's see. Security SSL, you'll learn about that in another course. So if you wanted to set it up to where you could set up an e-commerce site, you're definitely going to need some of those features. Let's see. Software programming languages that you can, Python. We won't be in Perl and Ruby. Those won't be languages that you learn in this program. But if you were to go on and get a master's degree, wanted to focus heavily in mobile programming, for example, that's definitely a place where you could go to courses that you could take. Then you have all these other applications that you can also install. And some of them deal with, WordPress, which is a CMS, a content management system, and it allows you to do all sorts of fun stuff. It is an elective that you can take here in, I want to say, your 300, 400 level courses. Let's see. OpenCart is another e-commerce type site. So is, let's see what else they got. They got a whole bunch. WordPress is most common, and they have plugins there that make it so that way you can have an e-commerce site. So like Portal CMS is right here. I could click on it, and it's going to give me all sorts of different options available. And it's going to give me this whole drop down with all sorts of features that you can kind of get lost in. Zencart's another popular one. Usually people pick one, and that's pretty much what they use across the board. It's always good, though, to kind of try to remain current and keep an eye on things, because things do change, certain applications get better, etc., etc. You also see, here are different ones as well. So image gallery is all different sorts of plugins that do a variety of techniques that you might want done. Of course, there's always limitations and things to keep in mind if you do use a third-party application versus learning how to program it yourself, is that you can run into issues. You might not understand the code fully, and that can definitely make things a little bit harder to deal with. Guest books are, obviously sort of a dated trend and not really used anymore. RSS feeds, again, kind of a dated trend, but you'll see it every now and then on different websites. So it still can happen. Customer support, so like every now and then you'll go to websites where there's like a live helper chat. This is where you can find some of those. Obviously, there are a bunch of them available elsewhere. There's a help desk, a ticketing system. Those are going to be the big ones. And of course, it really comes down to spending a lot of time kind of reviewing what's out there. So that way you know what you can introduce to your clients. Project management, a bunch of project managing applications, which may or may not be useful depending on what the client's looking for. Let me go back. Fortunately, I think I'm going to have to hit like back 50,000 times. And of course, here is the WordPress application, so that way you can log on into it. And if you go on for your bachelor's degree, I would highly recommend that you consider that, taking that course. I think you'll like it. So let me see if there's anything else that would be helpful to know. And of course, over here on the right-hand side is all the different, how much room I have left. Anything that has the loop is an infinity sign. So basically, I could have a trillion billion email accounts. Not really. Administrator would eventually tell me, hey, gonna delete some of those. But it's helpful to see where I'm currently at and what resources I do have. I can change my theme. Actually, I can't because I don't have any other ones added here, but I can always add additional ones. This is just primary domain, what directory I'm in, my IP address. You can also add additional users to the backend, so that way, if you worked on a big site for a big company, you're going to have a lot of users, and each one's going to have their own level of access. Like only certain people are going to be able to delete a full site for obvious reasons, because that would be a bad time. And let's see. Log out, reset password, user preferences, change the style, contact information, all that can be edited there. So if you happen to have any other follow-up questions related to web hosting, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I hope everyone enjoyed this course, and hopefully I will see you in future courses for the next session. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you, not in the discussions this week, so I will see you via email if any questions come up. Take care. Bye.